Welcome back to the Easy Spotlight podcast. Today we're joined by Austin Huddy, ex-Queen soccer player, now golfer, part-time golfer. He's trying to get there. He's making some moves. Spent 7 years working in the corporate world, should I say, in videography agency, and now started his own thing. Huddy, how you doing today, brother?
I'm doing great, man. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's handball championship day today. Huddy's excited. Who are you rooting for?
I got the Chiefs, man, and every time I picked against Mahomes, he bites me in my ass. So I'm rolling with the Chiefs today.
You're going with the favourites. All right. Well, we're going to jump in. We're going to start at ground zero to get started. And I want to know, what was your introduction to videography? Did that come in college? Did that come before then? When did you start getting feel for this space?
Sure. Yeah. So, I went to Queens obviously to play soccer, and that was pretty much like my only focus at that point. I was a soccer player. I had a major, but I wasn't really focused on it. I wasn't really even thinking about what I was going to do after college. So I actually came to Queens as a pre-physical therapy major because I thought I was going to go into like the medical field or something like that. Just quickly realized that that's not really what I wanted to do. It was kind of something I just picked because it seemed like a good route. And so I changed my major to business. And then, I took a business class, and like after one class, I was like, I don't know if this is for me. And so then I was like, now what am I going to do? And so then my friend convinced me to take or to switch to a communication major. And the very first class I took as a communication major was Intro to Digital Media, which that was just literally the basics of shooting video and editing. And I loved it. I immediately loved it. I could tell that I just understood it. I got it. It excited me. It was something that I was just like immediately passionate about. And I think it wasn't until like maybe halfway through that semester that I started to actually think, I was coming to that point, where I was like, okay, I need to start thinking about what I'm going to do after college. I still don't know. And then I was like, well, I love this video thing, so maybe I should put some more effort into this and focus on this. And I started like doing research into like the video production industry, and it seemed like there was a lot of different routes to go. And so I was like, let's do this. And so I kind of just like committed myself. I ended up buying some camera gear so that I could do stuff outside of class. I just started kind of making videos on my own with my friends. And then from there, just kind of built into where I'm at today.
It's amazing. And when you were in college, what was it the editing part? Was it the storytelling part? What grabbed you? Like, what was the thing that grabbed you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's so many different parts to video production that excite me. Funny enough, like the very first video project that I did for my class, I wasn't really interested in being behind the camera. I wanted to be in front of the camera because I'm just I love attention, so I was like, yeah, let me be in front of the camera and try to be funny and be an idiot. So I like the first project, we all had our roles, and so I was like in front of the camera, but then I was also the editor on the project. And then there was something about like when I got into the editing software and I had like all these clips and just like choosing the right moment to show a clip and then cut it and then go to another one and putting down music and sound effects, like all of like the super basic stuff about editing. I don't know, just like flipped a switch in me where I was like, this is really cool. I like how you can, it's kind of like, I kind of realized even that early on that like, this is like an art form, right? Even for like a school project, you can be so creative and be intentional about the message you're trying to send and like do cool stuff with editing or the way that you get shots. So it actually was the editing part that initially piqued my interest. And then from there, then I was like, okay, well, I want to try out this video thing or the camera operation as well, and that excited me the same exact way. So yeah, that's kind of like what initially piqued my interest.
That's cool. I think a lot of people have that feeling where they're like, I'm the star. And then they quickly realize, well, maybe I'm not. But
Yeah.
I mean, you still got the character, but you found that your passion was kind of behind it. So you
Yes.
graduate in Queens, you're kind of finding where you want to go. And I know you do an internship, but you eventually land at a video production agency in Charlotte, Spherical
Hmm.
Media, right?
That's
And so
right.
explain moving into that world, because I kind of work in that world in a different light. And it's an interesting world. It's a very big world. It touches every aspect of everything. So moving into that big corporate space, if you call it corporate,
Yeah.
what was that experience for you starting out?
Yeah, it was an awesome journey. So as you mentioned, I got a actually it's funny the way that I got my internship was I had a friend at Queens, you might have known her, Abby Toller. And she my senior year, she was like, "Hey, she texted me or called me and was like, "Hey, I'm getting a video shot on me for this scholarship that I won. Like Queens is shooting a video on me. I need some friends to come like, talk to me and be in like some B-roll shots. Like, can you come?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And so I went to join her, and it was Spherical Media doing the production on her. They were shooting, and actually one of the videographers, his name was AJ Shadora, and I had interned with him at it was Time Warner Cable News, now Spectrum News in Charlotte. And so I saw him. I was like, "Hey, what's going on, man? Like, are you working at Spherical now?" He's like, "Yeah, man, I'm working at Spherical. I love it." And I was like, "Do you guys want an intern?" And he's like, maybe we've never had one before, but I can run it up the chain. And I was like, "Yes, please do that." And so, he ran it up the chain, and at that point, Spherical was small. This was in 2017, and they were small. They had like 6 employees, maybe six, maybe seven. And so he ran it up the chain to the CEO, Tim Bear, and they were like, "Yeah, let's do an intern." And so from there, yeah, I got my internship, and the switch from shooting video projects for school and shooting stupid, pointless videos with my friends to like a client is paying thousands of dollars for this video was like a very big change. I almost compare it to like when you go from like a soccer reference would be like, you go from like rec league or playing in high school or pick up with your friends, and then all of a sudden you're stepping onto like a college field, like that it was kind of like that transition where I was like, okay, like I need to be focused, I need to be serious. The great thing about, like, I had a great experience at Spherical. I love those people, and what they did for me helped a lot, which is like they kind of like eased me in. Like, I was an intern, so it's not, they weren't like, "Here, direct this TV commercial today." It was like kind of like shadowing it first, and then starting to get to shoot some stuff and then edit some stuff, and they kind of like just kind of let me go at my own pace, which was great. But then, like, I was really hungry and I wanted more, and I was just constantly like, "Give me more, give me more." And so I really started to like move my way up at the company, and I basically got like 2 or 3 promotions, and eventually was working as, what was my last? It was like lead creative or something like that, where I was getting to like by the end of my Spherical career, I was really getting to um, direct a lot of big shoots. I was still shooting and doing editing, but I was more of like kind of like a director and kind of creative director on a lot of video campaigns. And I was talking to a lot of clients to helping like kind of close business when they were coming to us. But yeah, like overall, like the transit, to answer your original question, like the transition from shooting projects in school and with your friends to kind of the big leagues, I guess you could call it, was definitely a really big shift.
I like how you made your own path, essentially, because a lot of people will, maybe they'll try their hand at videography. They'll do it once in college, or do it once. They'll pick up a camera. Oh, I like this, but there is a huge jump, as you said, from just being your own director shooting on your phone to a huge production costing hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Mhm.
What would you say is what gave you the confidence to say, "I'm going to go and ask for a job that doesn't even exist"? Like, why were you even thinking that way, as opposed to like a lot of people would just be stuck searching on LinkedIn? Why would
Mhm.
you take the initiative to make your own
Yeah,
path?
yeah, that's a great question. I mean, again, I've always been somebody where I don't like to sit on my hands. I don't like to wait for stuff to come to me. And so I saw an opportunity. It's like And to speak specifically to this example, when it comes to video production, it can be really hard to like kind of break into the industry at times, especially when you're young. And the best way to do that is an internship. So I kind of already knew that in my mind, and at that time, I was kind of like I wasn't like really looking hard at places to work yet, but I was still kind of in my mind thinking, I'm like, what's going to be my entry point into the industry? Like, I don't know if anybody's going to like hire me straight out of college when my only experience is shooting video projects for school. Like I had like a okay reel at that time, but like looking back on it, if I was a video production company, I don't think I would hire me full time like at the stage I was at. And so in my mind, I'm like, I got to get an internship. And at that point, I was like, I'll do it unpaid. I don't care, like whatever. Just get me in the door, and then I'll prove myself from there. And so, yeah, so it was just that day where I was like, I'd heard about Spherical Media already. And it looked like a great place that I would love to work. And so it almost like, in a way, it kind of did fall in my lap because like I was on that shoot and they were there. But at the same time, I was like, I gotta at least ask. The worst they can do is say no, right? And so, yeah, I just asked for the internship and it all worked out. But I just think that a lot of people should do that more. Because, like I have a little sister who's like out of college. She's like, nobody will hire me. And it's like, okay, well, how many jobs do you apply to today? Are you going and knocking on people's door? Are you calling people? Are you showing up? Like, what are you doing? And so I think that like a lot of people today have this like kind of handout mentality where it's like, nobody will hire me, nobody will do this. Where it's like, I mean, you just got to go above and beyond. You got to go out, you got to knock on people's door, you got to show up, you got to call them, you got to annoy them. Worst they can do is say no. And so that's just kind of a mentality that I've always had of trying to be kind of in charge of my own life and not sitting on my hands. And so that was kind of like my thought process behind asking for that internship.
You make your own luck, right? And I think in this world,
Right.
even though you say it fell in your lap, not really, because you've you were in the right place at the right time, but you'd prepared for it, and you knew when the opportunity came, you were going to take that and take it further.
That's
And
right.
so, from a video production, there's so many elements to that. You said because you'd gotten at the ground and you were the first intern. I don't know. You must have had great leaders who kind of gave you the opportunity to test every part because there's as I understand it, there's so many different elements to that. Did it feel overwhelming at first to see how big the video production shoot was? And like, how am I going to get to a place where I'm running this thing on my own? Or did you just take it step by step, trusted the people above you, and went with the flow?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, the leadership at Spherical is awesome. They're still great. The same guys are still there, and they did a really really good job at kind of having a blend of kind of holding my hand a little bit at the beginning, but also kind of like occasionally push me further in the deep end and let me kind of sink or swim. And because I've always been a believer, and it's cliche, but like failure is your best teacher. And I failed a lot at Spherical all the time, and I learned the most from that. And so I think that the leadership at Spherical did a really good job at finding that balance between kind of holding my hand and having a bit of a safety net while also kind of pushing me further. And so to answer your question, yes, like when I first got there and I was like on my first big production, I was just like, and in my mind, I wasn't even thinking that far enough ahead where I was like, I'm going to be running one of these one day. It was more so just like, let me just like not make a mistake and like ruin this whole thing. Like, let me just kind of be a fly on the wall and try to be helpful and try to learn. So I honestly, I wasn't even like thinking that far ahead. And it was a slow process. I mean, it was like from the time I was an intern to the time I kind of directed my first like bigger production, it was probably like 3 years, maybe 3 or 4 years, something like that. And so yeah, it was a long process, and I learned a lot. Again, I learned a lot from my failures, but yeah, again, they did a great job at kind of like easing me into it and letting me kind of learn things myself.
When you'd got to the point where you were that 4 years in, and I'm assuming that there were some people underneath that you had to also guide in that process. How were you able to kind of lead them? Did you have a certain style? Did you let them fail? Because I know for me, when I'm managing people now, it's sometimes difficult. You set yourself such a high standard that you're like, I kind of need to do everything, but at the same time, if I'm ever going to go anywhere, I need to delegate. What was that process for you when you were first starting to lead and direct?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of nailed it. Yes, I was managing. By the time I got up to that position, I was managing a team of about 6 or 7 shooters and editors. Um, and yes, so like one of my main roles was the like head of post production or post production supervisor, whatever it is called. And basically, what that meant is like every single video before it went out to the client, it had to go through an internal review process, which is me reviewing it, making comments, making suggestions, and then the editor making those changes, going back to me, and then I would approve it before it went out. And yes, there was like I was the kind of guy where I was a bit of a control freak at first, especially in the creative business, where it's like there was a lot of projects where I would be like the director, or maybe I would even shoot them, but then because of workloads and everything, like somebody else had to edit it. And the thing about editing is that you can take the same video that you shot, like the same all this stuff. You give the video to 2 different editors, you can get 2 videos that are miles apart, like completely different. It's just about how you take it, which is a great thing about editing. But there were so many times where I had like a vision in my head, and I would pass it off to somebody, and then it would come back, and I'm like, this is not what I had in mind. But the thing was, though, is that I found it really important, as being a leader at Spherical, to allow people to express themselves creatively. So there was a lot of times where maybe I had a vision in my head for how the edit was going to go, and it came back and it wasn't what I expected or what I excuse me, what I had in mind. um, but it was still a good video, and it was kind of like their take on it. And that my main priority, like being in like kind of a corporate video production and storytelling and branding and advertising, obviously it's a business, so you got to make the client happy and you got to get them results. So as long as it was checking those boxes, and it was something that the client was going to be happy with, and that they were going to get results from, and it was hitting our standard at Spherical, which was pretty high, then yeah, I wouldn't necessarily try to step on anybody's toes. I would make like small changes here and there about little stuff. But again, I wanted to make sure that everybody was able to express themselves creatively. Because there's nothing worse if you're working as a creative, especially in a professional space, where you feel like you can't be yourself and you can't do what you want to do creatively. Like there's no worse feeling than that. And there's been times where it happens on certain projects, right? When you're working in the video world, where it's like, I want to do this, but the client's like, nope, let's do it this way. And it's like, you feel like you're in a straitjacket. It's like as an artist, you just like you have this vision, it's going to be better. You want to do it that way, but you just can't. And so that can be frustrating at times. But again, as a leader, my most important thing was just making people feel supported and making sure that they could express themselves creatively.
It's making me laugh because I work on the account side of an ad agency. So usually it's sitting in between you as a creative and then the client. And I'm listening to the creative. They created this beautiful thing. They have this great vision. You deliver it to the client and they're like, nope, this is what we want. And there's no really good rationale behind why they want to do it that way. And then you're going back to the creative and they're like, oh, okay, it's what the client wants.
Yeah,
It's kind of what
it
we got
can
to do.
be it can be so being in the industry for this long, I've like desensitized myself to it, because back in my early days, like kind of after my internship, and I was kind of like making my way and like starting to shoot and edit my own videos. You would have such an emotional connection to your work, which I think you should as an artist, and as somebody who's trying to make something like that, having that connection is healthy. But where it can bite you in the ass is when you have this deep emotional connection to this video you did, like, this is great, this is the best thing I've ever done, and you send it to the client and they basically just like take a big shit on it, and they're just like, this is not what we wanted, this is terrible, what is this? And you're just like, it's like a knife in the heart. It's the worst thing, and it happens all the time. But yeah, over the years, I've had to like desensitize myself to that, because if you do that constantly, you're gonna have a lot of highs, you're gonna have a lot of lows, and so I try to kind of stay even keel somewhere in the middle.
Right, you've become more professional, and I guess for a creative, one idea doesn't have to live with one project, right? They can evolve and develop into different things. So
Mhm.
you've been in the corporate world, you've been there 6 plus 7 years, and then you leave. And I know when you officially left, you're not looking to start your own business. You were looking
Mhm.
at other opportunities, thinking about different things. So first, what made you leave, or what pushed that decision? And then how did you get to start your own business?
Yeah, that's a great question, and you kind of nailed it for exactly how it was. I'd been at Spherical for 5.5 years, 6 years, somewhere in there, right out of school, and I kind of moved. Excuse me, I kind of moved my way up. I'd gotten some promotions. And I kind of was like at that point in my life where, like early on in my career, I was not thinking long term at all. I was like, literally, my only goal out of college was to like have a job that I at least moderately enjoy and can pay the bills. And so, like, for the first couple of years, I was just kind of like working and kind of keeping my head down and not really thinking like long term, what are my goals? And then when I got to be about like, 26 or so, 25, 26, then it was kind of like, okay, I'm like heading into my late 20s. Like, where do I see myself in 5 years, in 10 years? Is it here? Is it somewhere else? What is it? And I think I started to kind of realize that I saw myself as a business owner. And my initial goal was to be a business owner at Spherical. And so I kind of, that was like conversations that I'd had with them. Like, I'm really interested in ownership. Can I buy in? How do I do that? Um, and it was kind of met with, again, I'm a 25-year-old asking, can I be a business owner? And so understandably, they're kind of like, yeah, why don't you slow down a little bit? Like, we'll see where you're at in a few years. And that just like wasn't good enough for me. I had no patience at all. And like, I totally understand on their part. Like, we're not going to like, hand over a chunk of our business to this 26-year-old. But again, I was hungry. I was like, I don't care what my age is. Like, I feel like I'm ready to be a business owner. And then there were other things too as well that go to leaving a job, like a little bit of burnout. Man, I worked so many hours and worked weekends and worked nights, and it kind of like took a toll a little bit over those years. And so there was like things like that. But yeah, and so I kind of just decided, okay, I feel like I've kind of hit my ceiling a little bit at Spherical, and I'm ready to kind of branch out and see what else is out there. Again, this was the only job I had ever had, straight out of school. So I was like, I don't even know what it's like to work another job. And so I was just kind of like curious at that time and was looking to elevate my career a little bit. And so yeah, I left at the end of 2022, and just went out on the job search. And I wasn't exactly sure where I wanted to go. There was even like a thoughts in my mind where I was actually so burnt out from the video production world, the late nights editing, the long days shooting. Like, there was actually a point where I was like, a thought actually crossed my mind where I was like, do I want to do video anymore? And like that thought crossed my mind during the job search. And so I started to look around, and I was still looking at like, advertising agencies, and can I be like a creative producer? And then I was still looking at video production roles. Um, and then basically what happened was, I had a friend that he owns like a political advertising company in Charlotte. And so, like all those like smear campaigns, like Donald Trump wants to kill the nation, whatever it is, it's like they do those stuff, which I find hilarious, but it's great. Anyway, so he contacts me, and he's like, hey, I know you left Spherical, um, and I have a shoot, if you're willing to do it. And I was like, well, I'm not doing anything else right now other than like, submit resumes and stuff. So yeah, why not? And so it actually ended up being a pretty big shoot. It was like a week down in Florida, where we were bouncing around all these different cities and like getting these interviews and shooting stuff, going to like the Capitol and doing all this stuff for this political client. And even though, and this is when I realized, it kind of like hit me when I was there, where I was like, even though as far as video production, this is like probably the worst type of video you could possibly do, like political advertising videos. You see those on TV and it's like, ugh, it's just like, it's not a great feeling to even watch them. So imagine like being involved in them. But even it kind of hit me where, I referenced having those thoughts where I was like, I'm not sure if I want to do video. Like while I was on the shoots, like, and it was like my first time shooting video in like over a month, it kind of just hit me where I was like, I immediately had that passion just like rush back to me where I was like, I love this. This is who I am. This is what I do. And so it kind of like hit me on that week that we were in Florida that I was like, I got to get back into video. I gotta, it's just my passion. It's what I love to do. And funny enough, the guy that hired me, his name's Evan. I was talking to him and I was telling, we were hanging out a lot during that week and, talking about, careers. And I was telling him, my story about how I had left Spiracle and what I'm going to do. And funny enough, he was the one that was like, why don't you start your own business? And I was like, maybe I will. Maybe I will do that. And what kind of inspired me to do it was two things. One, Evan, kind of being like, you should start your own business. And he was like, I'll have a lot of work for you, to get you started. And so he was like kind of a lot of my business in the early days. And then the other thing that inspired me was my wife, Ashley, where I was kind of scared. Obviously starting a business is a really scary thing. Obviously you're thinking about what if I fail, all of the stuff the stresses that go with owning a business. And what made it more difficult is that I had gotten a job interview with this marketing agency in Charlotte, and they gave me like a really good job offer, like better than I was expecting during my job search process, as far as like what I was going to get to do and salary as well. And so it came like right before that trip that I went on to shoot it. And so I was having this conflict of like, I actually think I might want to start this video production business, but it's not guaranteed. There's so much to do. Where am I going to start? What is going on behind me? It's celebrating me starting my business. So I was having this conflict of, I have this guaranteed job, great salary, seems like I would enjoy it, versus do I go off and start my own business where I'm literally starting from scratch and don't know what to do. And so I credit my wife, Ashley, to being the one. She's like, just do it. You got to do it. You'll regret it if you don't. And that was another motivating factor for me, where I was like, if I look back in 5 years, 10 years, and I think to this moment to where I didn't make this jump, I would never be able to forgive myself, And so if I fail, I fail. That's fine. But that's kind of when I decided to make that jump and start Huddy Media.
Technical difficulties, but also if anyone's watching the video version of this, even the platform is excited about Huddy's thing, because there's fireworks going off in the background and everything. Incredible. But there's so many different elements that you just said there. One, you had great support from people who trusted in you, like your wife. That's always a thing. If it's someone who just tells you from the outside and can put those fears aside. But 3 or 2, the other thing is that you had the talent. You've kind of done that, so you were ready. It's just that internal fear. And so now we're about a year into your business, right? Just over a year. And I saw in a recap of your first year, you said this year was far beyond the expectations of what you thought it would be. What did you think it would be? You started out, of course, you have that fear, or what were the things that exceeded your expectations in this first year of business?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you kind of mentioned it before, where I was like, I knew I had the talent, I knew I had the experience. I'd done hundreds and hundreds of video productions, small to large productions, every single type of video. So I had no doubt that like I had the ability to execute it. Honestly, at the end of the day, what I was worried about is like, where's my work going to come from? How am I going to get clients? Like, where are they going to come from? Am I going to get enough clients? So again, I was not worried about any of the technical side of it as far as the ability to do it. It was basically just like, who am I going to get to pay me to do video? It's like at Spherical, they're paying a hefty sum for these videos, but they're paying a large production agency that has tons of experience, tons of people, all this stuff. And it's like, how am I going to get somebody to pay me just as a videographer? And again, and this relates to all business, where it's like, where do you fall in at that price point, right? Because I'm obviously not going to get somebody to necessarily pay like $50,000 when I'm like just starting my business and I'm just like one guy. But also it's like, I'm not going to do a shoot for like $500 because I'm way better than that. And so it was kind of like at the beginning, like figuring out where I fall as far as like my price point and making sure that I'm doing myself a service as far as the ability and what I'm offering to my clients, but also, as a new business owner, just trying to get into the industry. So I feel like I actually, in the first year, I kind of like came in at a bit of a lower price point to kind of get in. And that was able to set me up for a lot of success. So to answer your original question about where like my expectations for the year, my expectations were very, very low. I was like, just because I was like, I don't know where I'm going to get this business from. Like, as far as like revenue and stuff, I was like, I guess I'll set myself this goal, which was a very low goal. And really what happened was, as soon as I started my business, I was obviously, was starting the Instagram and posting on all my social medias, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all of those. And I actually had I had a lot of clients that I had worked with over the years at Spherical, that, to be quite frank, they were really just coming back to Spherical because they wanted to work with me. And so when I left, again, if any lawyers are watching with my non-compete, I did not reach out to anybody first, which is an important point. But anyway, I had all these clients reach out to me, and they were like, "Hey, I saw you started your own video production business. I got a project for you. Let's work together again." And so I actually had, like, from the very beginning, I had like all these clients that I had worked with over the years that were just coming back and wanted project after project after project. And then also, there were like, word of mouth was a huge thing for me. I didn't do any like advertising or any marketing for myself in the first year, other than like, the occasional social media posts. But it was tons of word of mouth. I would get hit up from somebody and be like, "Hey, my buddy so and so told me you have a video production business." So I'd get on a call with them, and then we'd close a deal, and it just kind of like snowballed, where I was like getting all this work, and it just far exceeded my expectations. And you mentioned like the 2023 reel I made, where I've watched it 1,000 times, and honestly, I get kind of emotional watching it, because I think back to when I was like having these doubts and I wasn't sure if I wanted to do this. I thought I was going to fail. I was scared of failing. And then I watched that video from just my first year, and I'm like, there's this feeling of like, oh, I did it. Like, I can't believe I did it, And this is just the beginning, And so it makes me excited also for the future of what I'm going to build. But yeah, again, my first year just far exceeded my expectations as far as amount of projects I did, amount of clients, revenue goals, getting to travel around and meet all these people and tell all these stories. It just went far and above what I was expecting in my first year.
That's amazing. And there's a trend of like humility at the start of your journey, because your journey to starting your business almost replicates the journey to getting into Spherical Media. Like, you were willing to do anything to get into the door, knowing that you're going to work hard and do it. And then you same thing with your business. You set yourself at a low price point, knowing that if I get the business, I can hold it and I can grow it. And also you mentioned about the thing that was kind of, let's say, special, was that they were coming back for you. And I don't know if you've read the book Unreasonable Hospitality, but it's pinging in my mind right now. Definitely read it. And it's all about businesses that go above and beyond from a customer service perspective and make people want to come back. Why do you think they wanted to come back and work with you in particular? What was it about the service that you were providing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, and the people that were coming to me were people that I had great relationships with that I had I would consider them friends almost at this point. I'd worked with them so many times. We knew each other very well. And we could just joke around with each other like we were friends on every single shoot we were on. So to answer your question, when it comes to, a client coming back and back over and over again for video production, one obviously, and this applies to any business relationship, is a sense of trust. And so typically for almost every single video production that or video project that I'm on, there's somebody at a company that is paying me money for a shoot, and they need that video to get them results for their business or make them look good for their boss or whatever. And so I think that anytime you're on a production with a first time client, you can always kind of feel a little bit where they're like over your shoulder a little bit. They're like, okay, is he doing what we need him to do? Like there's a nervousness, which I understand because, there isn't a relationship there and a trust there. But these clients that I'd worked with, I'd worked with them so many times. I'd shot them stuff that got them results, made them really happy. Whatever the business goal was, whether it was just general branding, advertising, or recruitment videos, like I'd done a wide array for all these clients, and it always got results for them. And so a big thing was that sense of trust and knowing like, okay, if I need a project where I need this to happen for my business, and I need this video to get this result, I know I can go to Austin and he's going to make it happen. And that's a really important thing that I pride myself on, is being consistent and being reliable when it comes to those situations. So I think that that's a big reason that a lot of these clients were coming back. And I would say also, again, which I mentioned earlier, is just the personal relationship. You know, I there's a quote that I always like where it says, "People will forget what you tell them, but they'll always remember how you feel." And I think I botched that quote a little bit, but basically the premise being like, when you're interacting with people, whether it's socially, professionally, whatever, and you can have a good time, just to like boil it down, you can just have a good time. You can have a laugh. You can make people feel comfortable. People remember that, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, people always remember that. And so every single shoot I'm on with a client, I always try to make it fun. Like, yeah, we're there to work and we're there to do a job, but at the end of the day, it's a video production. It's supposed to be fun. It's a cool thing. Like, let's be honest. And so every single shoot that I'm on with a client, I'm always having conversations. I'm always trying to bring them into the mix. We're always laughing, having a good time. And I think that that's something that sticks with people a lot, where maybe they're not thinking of it consciously, but maybe subconsciously they're like, okay, I know he's going to get results, but also it's like I have a good time every time we do a shoot together. And I think that that goes a really, really long way for any business relationship. And so I would kind of, boil it down to kind of those two things, as to why I got a lot of clients coming back to me.
It makes a load of sense. And from a client service perspective, I know the video production is always the best part of a client's thing. They're going to see something creative where usually they're sitting behind a computer all day, and suddenly they get to work with someone like you and see something come to life that they've been thinking about. And also touching on your trust and, personal, personality. It's kind of having that person, especially from a client, they may have a last minute need and they just know that they can rely on you. You know that your vision is representing them. And I think that's huge. One of your 24 goals, I know you also do bigger and more social presence and a lot of different things, but fun projects, things that excite you. What are the things that excite you about a project? Is it a genre in particular? Is it a part of the job, part of the process? What are those things that excite you? You're looking forward in 24.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that there's a couple things. I would say like from like a technical production side of stuff, I think the stuff that's the most exciting is like, the stuff that you saw that I did with Queen's University, like with their basketball team and volleyball teams, where for anybody that's watching that hasn't seen it, it's essentially you go when you go to like a basketball game and you see kind of like that hype video that's up on the Jumbotron with all the cool lights and basketball highlights and stuff. I basically got to do that for Queen's University's men's and women's basketball team as well as their volleyball team. And those shoots are so much fun. Like, I love those because you're getting to interact with the players. They're having fun because they're like, okay, I'm not having to lift weights or go to practice or go to class. So for them, it's like, it's an outlet for them to just kind of relax and have fun. I'm having fun shooting and directing everything. I got a crew with me that works, and we like to have a good time out there, and just like being able to be as creative as possible, out there on those shoots when it comes to like the lighting, the actions that we're making the players do. And then obviously in the back end, the editing side of that is really fun. So I think from like a technical side of stuff, like that's the stuff that excites me. It would be cool for me to maybe market the videos that I've done for Queens for other schools in the area that might be interested in kind of doing that stuff and elevating their game. Another thing that really excites me is I've always been, since I got to Spherical, um, I've always been a storyteller. And I think that that's one of the things that in the video production business, well, I think the word storyteller is really overused, in my opinion. I think that a lot of video production companies, a lot of advertising agencies, all that stuff, they're always like, we're storytellers. But a lot of people like don't fully understand what that means, in my opinion, and they just call themselves storytellers. But just because you edit a video doesn't mean that you told a story necessarily. And so I've always prided myself on being a storyteller when it comes to my videos, a lot of my videos, where you're taking the audience through a journey, you're evoking emotion out of them, and at the same time, you're trying to kind of get a point across when it comes to like the professional side of stuff, because you're obviously branding and advertising. So when it comes to the storytelling perspective, I've always loved working with nonprofits because they have the absolute best stories to tell. Of course, they're, like last year, I got to work with a nonprofit called Carolina Breast Friends. It's a breast cancer support group, and just like getting to meet those people and talk to them and hear their stories about what they had dealt with, what they're currently going through, um, and hearing how Carolina Breast Friends was able to support them and pull them out of this deep, deep hole that they were in, and set them on a new path. And it's just like those kind of stories that I just absolutely love. Getting to talk to those people and just like puts your own life into perspective about stuff that I complain about day to day. But yeah, I think just like working with more nonprofits and getting to hear their stories and tell those stories in a really creative way, that's something that I would like to do a lot more of too.
That's amazing. I think I can vouch for that. If you go on Huddy Media and check out that video you just said, your Queen's Reels, I think you did one with Good Morning Opportunity, right, as well. I watched that one, and that one again is along the same theme that you said there. So I think only the best. And I'm going to wrap it up there, Huddy. Appreciate you coming on. I think 24, if the expectations were blown in 23, it's only going to continue in 24, I'm sure. That people in the Charlotte or in the North Carolina area, I'm sure I see you traveling everywhere. So I don't know if there's a boundary on where you work. There's no boundaries. So England, anyone in England, you hear this? Hit him up. He's a Tottenham fan. Don't hold him against it, but we'll get there. Anyway, appreciate you coming on today. And everyone else, keep it easy.